Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Wednesday night Bible study. I'm excited to share with you today because today we're going to start a series on one of my favorite stories from the Bible. It's a story that Jesus tells, and maybe you're familiar with it, maybe you're not, but I hope that over the next couple of weeks we can explore this story and find meaning and inspiration in it, and that God can really speak to us in the words of Jesus through the story of the father and his two sons, one who goes astray and one who does not. Some have referred to this as the prodigal son story. I don't love to put titles on it because it's so much bigger than any title can really sum up for us. It's a story about a father and his two sons, but it's also a story about God and us. And so we're going to explore Luke 15, starting with the prodigal son story, as it's probably headed in your Bible. If you want to open up with us in the Bible that you use, or open the Bible in any way that you can explore it as we go through this passage together. I'm going to read it in the first of these videos. We're going to have 3 in this series, and I'm going to read the story aloud in the first video here today, and then the other videos I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to assume that you've heard it, or that you can read it before we start, just to save time in the video. So you can review in the videos after this that story yourself, read it again to yourself, and then watch the video. But let's just jump into it. I'm going to share this scripture with us. Let me tell you this story that Jesus tells. Jesus said, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me.' So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all that he had and traveled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled himself with the pods of the pigs that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to himself, he said, 'How many of my father's hands have bread enough to spare, but here I am dying of hunger. I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands.' So he went off and went to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his slaves, 'Quickly, bring out a robe, the best one, put it on him, put a ring on his finger, sandals on his feet. Get the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate. Now his elder son was in the field. And when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. He called one of the slaves and asked what was going on. He replied, 'Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fatted calf, because he had got him back He has got him back safe and sound. Then he became angry and refused to go in. His father came out and began to plead with him, but he answered his father, "Listen, for all these years I have been working like a slave for you, and I have never disobeyed your command. Yet you have never given me even a young goat so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came back, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him." Then the father said to him, "Son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice, because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found." We're going to break up this story and in our exploration of this story into three parts. The first part being that we are the prodigal son, but we're also the older son. But ultimately, we are becoming like the Father. Let's start with the first part here. We are all the younger son. There was a man who had two sons, and the younger said to his father, "Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me." Now, we might miss the depth of this. We might not. Many of us have experienced wills and the passing of property from a parent to child after death. But this is basically what the son asks of his father. "Father, give me what you're going to give me in your will. Give me what you're going to give me when you die, right now. In other words, I wish you were dead right now so that I could get on with my life, so that I can get on with what's due to me and do what I want to do." Now, not only is this a shameful question to ask, but the father simply gives the younger son what he asks for. The father doesn't force the son to stay when the son doesn't want to. He doesn't force upon the son to love the fullness of what the father has right now in the household of the father. He just allows the son to have what he wants. Because love is not forced. Because love is freely given. And this father simply freely gives to this ungrateful son, who would rather have his father dead than to live with him. You and I are the younger son. We have in our life sinned. And what sin is ultimately a rejection of the household embrace of the Father. The life under the roof of the Father has with it parameters on life. To love God with our whole heart, to love our neighbor as ourselves. These are the restrictions, but also the life-affirming embraces of the household in which we live when we embrace God as our Father, as our heavenly parent. And when we sin, when we go astray from that, what we are more or less saying is, I wish that I didn't live under this house. I wish that God were dead. That way I could just live my life without the barriers of these walls, without the barriers of the responsibilities in this household, without having to answer to anyone. I want to go live my life, to take my destiny by the horns and go to a distant country, one far away from the Father, so that I might give or live my life. We are the younger son. We have, in sinning, rejected the life in the household of God and gone astray. And we are the younger son in the sense that we have found that the love of God in our journey through life, hopefully we have found along life's journey that the love of God is something that we won't find elsewhere. We won't find the love of God in the distant country with the people who won't give us anything, though we long to eat the pods of the pigs. Oh, when we were there and we had money to offer, people received us well. But as we squandered that, and when we had nothing and we were in our greatest need, we know that sometimes when we're out in life and we run out of things to offer, people turn away. If we're not able to give, people don't want to give back. When we had spent everything, we began to be in need, we found that people didn't give us the love that they did when we had things, when we could give them something in return. The Father who gave his son what his son hadn't earned was rejected by his son to enter into a world where people rejected him once he didn't have anything to offer. And in his desperation, this young man in this story went out and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to, and that person that hired him, sent him to the fields to feed the pigs. Now, if you're not familiar with Old Testament life or Jewish law or ancient Jewish law, you may miss that this is a dire situation. If we're to assume that this is a Jewish family and that this is a Jewish young man, he's not supposed to be fraternizing with people of a distant country, first of all, and he's not supposed to be messing with pigs. Pigs are according to Old Testament law, unclean things. Now we have adapted those laws and have moved beyond many of them. But if we're to assume that in this time and in this day, in this age, that is considered to be unclean, then this young man has gone so far away from his identity, from his religion, from his family, that he is considered excluded from his home, from his religious community, cut off. He most certainly would have been. What's worse here is that he is cut off from his past family ties and his identity there, but he's also treated inhumanely by the people of this new country that he's found himself in. He would have gladly filled himself with pig food, but no one would even give him that. They considered the pigs more valuable than this man. And so he has this moment where he comes to his senses. He comes to the realization that the love of the Father is unlike the love of the world. It is unlike the experience of inhumane treatment, of kindness because you've earned it, of only being valued for what you can offer. At the end of the day, when everything's squandered, when all ties are cut, when all the food's run out, when he's at his lowest moment, he realizes that even the servants of his father's house have bread to spare. But here he is dying of hunger. And so he begins to rehearse the homecoming lines. Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands. Maybe you and I have rehearsed different lines. Maybe we wouldn't say it in these terms. Maybe it sounds like, Father, if I turn my life around, if you come through for me in this moment, then I'll never leave you again. Father, I have sinned and I am sorry. I repent. Father, I have messed up and I don't feel like I'm worthy to turn back. So here I am. Do with me what you want to. Maybe your rehearsed homecoming lines don't have any words at all. Maybe your rehearsed homecoming lines, that feeling that you've come to your senses and that you want to return to the Father, but you don't know how, and you don't know if he's going to accept you. So you're just happy to take whatever position you can in this household, as long as you don't have to live in the life that you have been. But you haven't put those into words. You haven't put that feeling into words. It's just in your gut. It's just in your mind. It's just in your soul. You can't put a name on it, but you're rehearsing those homecoming lines, the feeling of I don't deserve it, the feeling of I want life to be different, the feeling of I have messed up, the feeling of I'm not worthy to be a son anymore, or a daughter anymore, but I want to go home. We are the prodigal son. We are the prodigal daughters who have left for a distant country and found that the Father's love is not there. And we want to go home. And so this son sets off and goes to the Father. Maybe you've made that motion before. Maybe you want to make it again. Maybe you're in the middle of the journey back home. Maybe you've been home for a while, but we have all taken the opportunity to choose whether or not to do what this young man does. He sets off and he goes to his father, and then the story starts to change into something extraordinary. What strikes me about Jesus's parables is he always takes these things that seem so normal and they end up extraordinary. You and I know of a lot of prodigal son stories. Maybe you and I have been prodigal sons for our earthly parents and prodigal daughters for our earthly families or friends, where we've gone and severed ties and gone to a distant country. We know stories like that. Those are normal or have become normal in life. But I don't know very many that end up like this. He set off and went to his father, but while he was still a long way off. His father saw him. Let's pause there. If his father saw him while he was a long way off, then the father was looking for him to come home. Let that sink in for a second. And was filled with compassion. The father ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. And then the son starts rehearsing the lines. Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. And he doesn't even get through the whole thing. He doesn't even get all the rehearsed lines out. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but or if you, and my prayer is that you will, but I think that every prodigal son and daughter who comes home to God finds that they're not able to get all of their homecoming rehearsed lines, however many words they contain, before the love of God sweeps in and stops them right there and says, you are home now. The father does not even let him finish his lines, his full-hearted attempt to accept a lesser position in the household. The father stops him right there and starts just to talk to the slaves around him. Quickly, bring out a robe, bring the best one, put it on him. Oh, what happened? Put it on him, because this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. We are the prodigal son. We are the prodigal daughter. And the Father was looking for us, is still looking for us, and has not rejected us as children. And when we come home to him, we have the opportunity to be embraced. Not in a lesser way, not with some sort of lesser, sort of lesser identity than what we could have had if we hadn't messed up, but with the fullness